Welcome to the Audacity to Age, where becoming never gets old. I'm Kristie Crenshaw, and this is a place for women who believe life's most meaningful chapters aren't behind them, they're being written right now. Together, we'll explore the stories, lessons learned, reinventions, and unexpected joys that come with life after 50. Together, we'll challenge old thinking, embrace new possibilities, and discover what it means to age with purpose, curiosity, originality, and verve. So grab your coffee, lace up your walking shoes, or settle into your favorite chair. This is the Audacity to Age.
Okay, so I thought it was really only fair that I go through all the paces that I ask my guest to go through and to bare my soul in the ways that I ask my guests to, and to share funny stories and maybe some lessons learned, because that's kind of the whole point here at the Audacity to Age. So we're going to jump into the 20s, the decade where I was in my 20s. As I'm looking through my list, because I'll show you, like I do this whole highs and lows list type of thing, and for multiple reasons. One, it's helpful in creating story, in crafting story. It's also great to make peace with baggage that you've been carrying around. And also taking a look at those stories and deciding and defining what's the through line? What's the thing that I want to take with me and bring into my current and future life, right? I want to never win or lose. I want to always win or learn. And so in order to do that, you've got to go back and look and analyze and question. And then you can set it down. Good, bad, ugly, you can set it down and move on. And so that's what my process is. When I was in my 20s, I was in college, junior year at Morehead State University. And I actually did not rush until my junior year. I was someone who was not going to be a joiner. I just didn't want to do it. And I was super busy, double major, theater, radio, television, but I'd made friends. And unfortunately, all of my friends were in a sorority. And so I kind of had two camps of friends. I had my KDs and my Chios and a few DZs here and there. I did not want to sit home on Fridays and Saturdays or even during the week and not be able to hang out with my friends. So I decided to go through Rush and pledged Kappa Delta. Loved it. Forged some really great friendships from that. But I think what I learned in that is that I was okay being alone, but it's a lot more fun when you're together, when you're with other people. And I think women in generally, we're wired for that. We're wired for community. And so I'm definitely glad that I went the Greek route in college. It was good for me. It was a great experience. While at college, I'm the youngest of 6 kids. All right. We didn't come from money. I needed to earn scholarship. I worked a work study. I had part-time jobs. And I also was going to compete in a pageant, competing for scholarship in the Miss America program. And so Morehead State had a regional pageant that leads up to Miss Kentucky. And I competed in that twice, maybe 3 times. First runner-up twice. First runner-up both times. You can also go and compete at other regionals to advance to the state level. And it was kind of a godsend in a way, because I didn't win my first ones when I competed. It always took me 2 to 3 tries, but every time I would place. And so I would win some scholarship, which for me, that was the driver. It was, learn some skills. You compete in talent, you compete in evening gown interview. You have now it's a social impact initiative. It was a platform then when I competed. And you become a better person in the process, period. But winning scholarship was my driver in that, because I needed to pay for college. And Dad was not gonna just stroke a check for all of that. So I did, and I wound up competing at Miss Kentucky. I competed 3 times total. The first year that I went, I did not place I wasn't in the top 10. I didn't do anything at state, but I did get additional scholarship just for being able to go and compete. And I learned a lot and I made some friends. And I saw women, young women in the state of Kentucky operating at a much higher level than I had ever imagined. Like it was astonishing to me the amount of effort and energy that these women were pouring into their social impact initiatives, their platforms at the time. It was very inspiring. It was very inspiring. And I'll say this, if you're not someone who's very familiar with pageants at all, that you have a greater chance of having a son compete in the NFL than you do of having a daughter compete at Miss America. So that's a little fun fact there. But first year, I didn't do anything. I didn't advance at state. The next year that I competed, I did the same thing. I had to compete at multiple regionals before I won a title to go to state. Again, garnering a little bit of scholarship along the way every single time, and that was great. And my second year, I made top 10. So I was able to compete on television for the first time. Yes, we were at Transylvania University in Lexington, Kentucky, and it was broadcast live in the state. And so I competed in talent and evening gown and interview on television. And I didn't make it past the top 10, but like that was really cool. I was a double major in theater and radio television. And so being in that environment, it was fun. It was kind of in my wheelhouse and it was tremendous fun. So I thought I need to see this from a different perspective. And you can read about a thing, you can do a thing, and you can watch a thing to have it gel for you in the learning. I'm a very visual learner. So competing in it, reading about it, listening to other people talk about their competition experience, great. I decided that I was going to sit out a year, but I was going to go to all of the regional competitions and watch. And so I did. I went to as many as I could and hit all of them, but I went to as many as I could and I watched young women, supported friends that I knew, compete in their regionals. And, being a theater major, you have a different view of anything that's on stage or on film. It's the way your mind works. You understand backstage, you understand stage left, stage right. You just look at it a little bit differently and you understand all of the elements that go into a stage production. And Miss Kentucky is a stage production. It was then, it is now, it will ever shall be, I believe. But having that perspective gave me a new level of confidence going into my I set out the third year, fourth year, I competed again. And that is the year that I did not win any preliminary awards. I did not win preliminary swimsuit or preliminary evening gown or non-finalist interview. I didn't win any of those, but I won Miss Kentucky and I got to compete at Miss America and I won additional scholarship there based on an essay that I wrote. It was a Konica scholarship for $5,000. And I'd never seen a check that big or for that much, frankly. That was a tremendous experience. And what I learned there as I look back at that, because it was kind of a blur, but that you really can do just about anything if you put your mind to it. And if you take out the emotion, I was emotionally invested in the system and I was very excited to compete. But in that year that I sat out as an observer, I had no skin in the game that year. There was my hopes weren't tied up in anything. I was just watching. I was observing. I was taking it all in. And for me, that was a huge benefit because I came back the next year with a completely different perspective and a level of expectation from myself. Not so much that I knew I was going to win, because saying that sounds arrogant, but I will tell you that I had a calm and a centeredness walking into that year of competition that I did not have years prior. And so I knew if I won that I'd be ready. And that was a tremendous experience. Paid for 75% of my entire college experience. That was wonderful. Dad liked that. Also in my 20s, I wound up, because again, I was a theater major, radio, television, double major. I wound up moving to Nashville. And that was the next biggest city from where I lived. And I wasn't quite ready to go to anything bigger, but I went to Nashville and I thought, well, maybe I can be a country music singer. I sang for my competition at Miss America. I am not a singer, okay? I can sing a song, I can sell a song, but I am not a professional singer. I can't tell you what key anything is in. I can't, yeah, I don't understand. I can't read sheet music. Like I'm not that person, but I can hear something and match it or match it to the best of my ability. And that's how I learned to sing songs. And then of course the theatrical background. And so in Nashville, I did dinner theater, I did commercials, I did country music videos, I worked with Vince Gill, I worked with Dolly Parton. There were some really cool events. I got my SAG card when I was in Nashville. That came to me through booking a service merchandise commercial. And Robert Wagner was in this service merchandise commercial. We shot this thing at a Target store. No, at a service merchandise store. That would make more sense, wouldn't it? Not a Target store because it wasn't for Target. Service merchandise. It was at a service merchandise store that they had closed at 10. We show up at 11 p.m., shoot all night long until about 8 a.m. the next day. And that one commercial is how I got my SAG card, the Screen Actors Guild, which allowed me to audition for better projects, higher paying projects, organized projects from the Actors Union. And so that was a big deal. If you are pursuing an acting career, that is one of the first milestones, markers that you try to hit is becoming a professional in that way. And so I did a lot of voiceover work and commercials, country music videos, things like that, infomercials. And I wound up working at Shop at Home Television. Yes, I, Kristie Hicks at the time, wound up selling anything from skincare to electronics to beanie babies to knives to collectible coins, like you name it. I was on the air selling. And the cool thing was, yeah, we would have oftentimes vendors come on with us. So you had someone to banter back and forth with, which I thoroughly enjoyed. That was always fun. And then you would, wrap it up and close. One of the things that was really fascinating to me that I didn't realize, and you probably don't when you're sitting at home watching that, if you ever watch any type of home shopping, anything, is that when you're on camera, you've got the shot, you've got all these screens in front of you, and the shot that's live is what's on camera that's coming through to you. There's the shot that they're setting up for the next one, and then there's this magic little screen up here that shows you the call center volume. So you can see what is coming in the way of calls, how long they're staying on, when they're dropping off, when they pick back up. And so you're able to pivot your message based upon the activity of the call center. So I think for me, that was one of my first experiences at really learning to read a room, if you will, because I had to take the temperature of the call center and see, I'm talking about this in this way, and those phones are blowing up. So I'm going to keep hammering this message until they start to drop off, and then I'll shift gears. And so that was a really great experience. They are no more. They downsized. I was one of the first to go because I was one of the last ones hired. But I had a really fun run there. And, I don't even have footage. If someone has footage of me on Shop at Home, I'd love to have it, frankly. I have zero footage that I can find because it was back in the day when you didn't save it digitally. And if I don't have it digitally, I really don't know where it is. It's probably in either my mother-in-law's garage or our mudroom somewhere in a box. I don't know. But once I got my SAG card, I thought, okay, I'm going to go for it. I'm really going to go for it now. And I wanted to move to Los Angeles. Thought I was going to go to LA and be a movie star. I would have settled for just a paid actress. Movie star really wasn't realistic. And frankly, I landed in LA and 2 weeks later, SAG goes on strike. So if you are a member of SAG and SAG goes on strike, that means you cannot work. You are not permitted to take a job. So I could not even get an agent. I didn't do any paid work while I was in Los Angeles. It was tough. I did study with the Groundlings Theater there, which is akin to Second City in Chicago. They did improv classes there. And I remember my instructor was Big Roy Jenkins. His name was Roy Jenkins, but he was like 6'7". And so his email address, he laughed as he delivered this to the entire class, is bigroyjenkins at blah, blah, blah.com. So, and I've seen him show up in some commercials and movies and in some smaller roles, which was kind of fun. But in doing improv, you learn how to not really care to try to not predict, rather, how people are going to respond and manipulate a situation. You're much more interested in being in the moment. So the number one rule of improv is yes and. So if you're acting in a scene with someone and this person comes into the scene and says, there is an asteroid headed for Earth, you can't say, no, there's not. That was yesterday. Or no, there's not. They shot it out of the sky. You have to say yes, and it's coming straight for us. Like you have to lean into whatever the current reality is. That in and of itself is a life lesson. Yes, and. Yes, and. Crap happens. You lose your job. Yes, and maybe it's pivoting you to a next level, something new, something better. It's raining outside. Yes, and I'll now get a chance to catch up on some of that reading that I've been putting away. Like you have to embrace it. It's usually, I find, it is usually that when our expectations are something, and then that something is not met, that's when we experience pain. That's when we experience massive discomfort. That's when we experience misery, often self-fabricated, self-whipped up misery is when we have this level of expectation and then we fight against the truth. Not your truth or my truth, but the truth. I think that might be a whole episode on another time, but we'll move on. So I spent about 2 years in Los Angeles and never got a paid role. I was on a few things that were free. I did, someone straightened my hair for an extra. Remember that show? Extra, extra, extra. That show, and it was a topic of hair straightening, like a keratin treatment. And so I got to go to some super swanky salon in Malibu. And no, not Malibu, Santa Monica? Santa Monica. Who knows? I can't remember. It was a super swanky salon. The retail price on the service that they were doing to me on camera was around $500 to $700. So that blew my mind. I had never, ever imagined spending any kind of money like that on a hair treatment. And so they straightened my hair. And so it looked a little bit like Catherine Zeta-Jones. That kind of hairstyle is what mine wound up being. Now, I'll tell you this. I did it that one time, and I never did it again. And here's why. So imagine, I've got this curly fro here, and this is my natural hair. So I go through the straightening process, and for like 2 weeks, it is stick straight, flat to my head. Then when it starts to grow out for the next maybe month or two, this part up in the roots gets a little curl back in it because, it's my hair shaft is coiled, and that's why it comes out that way. And so there's a little bit of lift and then the straightness. And so that's kind of cool. And then you get to this really wonky, weird place where like the first 2 to 3 inches out of your scalp is curly, and then the rest of it is stick straight. And so I had to curl the ends. It was either straighten the roots or curl the ends. And I did not like that. And secondly, I did not feel like myself with straight hair. And thirdly, because this will segue into the next little story that we're sharing from our 20s, is that the man that I was dating at the time preferred me with straight hair. That should have been just one of many dozens of first red flags that I chose to ignore, but God gave me a fantastic head of hair, and he didn't really care for it. So anyway, I chose not to straighten it again, but I wore it straight a lot. And I really did not feel like myself. And that was symptomatic of me not honoring myself or honoring my maker. Now, maybe I'm getting a little melodramatic here in saying that that's a correlation to that just because I didn't straighten my hair, or maybe you have straight hair and you curl it, so that's not, you're not dishonoring God. But I I didn't feel like myself. I didn't feel true. And that should have been a massive red flag for me because that one thing affected my personality. It affected the way I engaged. It affected the way I showed up and the way I engaged with other people, and not in a good way. I felt myself smaller, become smaller and less significant. And I would highly recommend that you don't do that. So that whole relationship was not a good one. I moved into up to my let's see, we're still in my 20s. I was 30 years old, right at 30, when we married. And that'll take us into the next episode of the 30s. And I will tell you this: we dated for 5 years, we were married for 5 years, and that was 10 years too many. And I want to own this because it was a very poor choice. If you are considering marriage, I can tell you now, on the other side of that, in a beautiful marriage, that marriage is freaking awesome. It's one of the best things on the planet. It's the greatest adventure. It is my biggest joy, and I'm having a blast. Even when things are tough, we have a good time. We laugh every single day in this house, and I know he's got my six, and I've got his. All is good. Now, when I was in my 20s, I had this list, the checklist. I mean, Cosmo magazine told us to have one, right? They gave us a checklist of everything that we should expect and look for in a potential husband, getting our MRS degree. And this is just one little bone that I have to pick with Cosmo because the whole feminist movement and Cosmo magazine, I've got some serious issues with. What I was looking for, what society and media was training us all of us young 20 somethings at that point, to look for, was very superficial. And if you checked the box, then great, move forward. I was not in a good place spiritually, even though I was raised in the Catholic Church. I was raised by parents that stayed married for 50 some years before my father passed away. And I had an amazing example of commitment to marriage and long term life together. And I chose poorly. And I have to own that. So if marriage is something you're looking to do, I highly recommend it. But I will tell you what, you have got to get square with who you are and what your values are. Otherwise, you will find yourself just wallowing in misery. And my romantic relationships, up until a point, were the single greatest source of misery in my life because I was seeking validation in the person who picked me. I was like, pick me, because I didn't feel like I was valuable unless somebody loved me. And I missed the whole point. I am divinely and uniquely made, fearfully and wonderfully. Like, that's enough. It was enough then, it's enough now. If there is something on top of that, if there is marriage on top of that, that's icing and it's beautiful. But I didn't get that. I didn't have that knowledge in my 20s. And that's one thing that I would impart on younger Kristie if I had a chance to slip her a note in class. It would be that one. It would be that one. Know who you are. Know what your values are. Know what your value as a human being is. And always, always seek God, seek the truth, and everything else will work its way out. So that's my 20s in a brief overview. Hope you enjoyed it.
This is Kristie Crenshaw. Thanks for joining me at the Audacity to Age, where becoming never gets old. If you'd like more stories, insights, and encouragement for navigating life after 50 with purpose and possibility, subscribe to my Substack, The Audacity to Age on Substack. And if you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow, rate, review, and share it with someone you love. Until next time, keep choosing curiosity over complacency and possibility over limitation. How will you be intrepidly daring, marked by originality and verve in life post 50? That's having the audacity to age. I'll see you soon.